A mass fatality event. They're getting ready for a mass fatality event. They said up to 700 casualties. They're working on mobile morgues for this. Directed energy weapons. What is going on? We're going to talk about this drill that Europe is going through at the same time that we saw Poland have to shoot down drones in Russia. This is a big escalation. What does it mean for us? Again, we're NATO. We are NATO. What does this mean for us? While we're talking about that, guess what? The funeral of the slain blind Ukrainian girl, she was flown back to have this service in Ukraine. The father was not able to attend because they wanted him for the draft. They would not even allow him to attend his own daughter's service. We're going to talk about that. Also, with everything going on, we tend to forget how frivolous our Congress is. We just sent tons of money over to Ukraine. Overwhelmed support from both parties. At the same time, there's a new report showing that every Fed, every international money group is releasing dollars and buying gold right now. There is not one Fed that has less gold than money, meaning they're willing to give their dollars up to have the gold. That shows that there's something major coming. And then that's a push. Go back to Charlie Kirk for a second. We're at a spiritual war. We're going to be seeing a war of good versus evil. And part of that is, how can we be independent in the midst of all this going on? We need to make sure that we are protecting our families and protecting and being responsible for things that God's given us. And then lastly, I just want to say, I honestly get so sick and tired of Congress talking about unity when something like this happens. The Republicans come out and talk for unity. Kind of over it. I think this is a spiritual war. I don't think this has anything to actually do with politics. I think we want to make it about politics because politicians are narcissistic. I think the reason Charlie is gone is because he had faith. We'll discuss what someone said I thought was great, a great quote. All this today and a few more stories. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to our channel. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new, please go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell. Give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, that's okay, but let us know what you think about the content of today's video. Now let's jump into the stories of the day. Now we are going to hit on a little bit more details. It just broke that Trump did release that they had caught the guy for Charlie Kirk. We'll discuss that a little bit more and what I actually think about this in a little bit. But let's hit some other stories that are so important and that I think we've lost traction on. First, let's talk about Europe. A few things. Now, we just gave another round of funding to Ukraine. Now, while you were worried about the Charlie Kirk thing and our minds and our emotions have been tied to that, your Congress just released a monster, massive dollar package over to Ukraine. At the same time, Poland shoots down 2 drones. A major issue, a little escalation right there between Russia and Poland. Poland, again, has nuclear capabilities because of NATO and what we've put there. So again, that's why I say you got to pull out of NATO. But let's kind of go back to Europe for a second. This just broke, and if you remember me talking about Pegasus the last few days, you remember me talking about them doing some kind of gaming, which is very unique with airborne pathogens and things like that. I want you to listen to this story that just broke the last few days. The UK just hired a new Ministry of Defense under the International and Communications Advisor to handle direct energy weapons. Now, it was long told that Europe did not have direct energy weapons. This was something that America had that Europe didn't. All of a sudden, the last 2 to 3 days, they had hired someone to be a Ministry of Defense dealing with just direct energy weapons capabilities. Not only that, that same week, it broke that the Home Office dealing with having mobile morgues and taking care of mass casualty events. Listen to this. The European Union, along with Great Britain and parts of the Western European Coalition, has just bought into a new company that would help take care of up to 700 bodies in a mass fatality event. They were awarded a $1 million preparedness grant to start building this now. Now, a lot of people didn't know that, and all of a sudden they started exposing it. So you tell me, why in the world did they say, okay, we're going to have an uptick in war, we see more funding going to Ukraine, we see that there's no peace agreement signed, while everybody's worried about things going on, the tragedy that we should be focused on, you see an uptick in World War III, or in something. Up to 700 bodies they just awarded. A $1 million preparedness grant, or a Euro grant, in Great Britain. Is that not just weird? At the same time that the Poland issue happened, the same time that they see hiring a direct energy weapon advisor, you saw last night there was a rush. Netanyahu was rushed out of a certain location. He said he had to stop what he was doing and focus on something he could not talk about now, and he was rushed off stage, taken by police escort to an undisclosed location. That's a lot of craziness going on. Now, for most of us, we worry about American things first. And so when they're like, well, Kobe, why do you care about this? This is not America. Yeah, but here's the thing. This is why I believe we need to get out of NATO, because this is an American thing. There was a report that showed that Europe could not do any capabilities of war conflicts or mentalities dealing with conflict without Americans' help. It says that NATO would not exist without America. Well, with this buildup, do you honestly believe that America doesn't know what's going on here? With this buildup, do you not honestly believe that America now is knowing that we would be putting troops on the ground if something bad happened in Europe, with the fact of a mass fatality event that they're planning for 700 people at least right now? Now, you think that's crazy, but it's like, do we just frivolously give $1 million Euro contracts and $1 million contracts to people just to build new morgues for a certain area? Do we just hire all these random people that deal with not just defense, but truly war? Do we just all of a sudden start doing this at the same time? I think that's very peculiar, at the same time that we released a ton of money when no one talked about it to Ukraine, to the efforts of war. Pay attention to this story. I think there's something else going on in Europe that we need to focus on. Not because it's America, but it does involve America, because without America, Europe would probably cease, and NATO would definitely do that. Now, we have several other stories to get to, but a word from today's sponsor, something very, very important in this day and time. If you wonder why scammers are always getting your phone number, why you have so much spam in your inbox, well, this is why. Your data has been compromised, meaning there's data brokers out there, and what they're doing is getting your information and turn around and selling it to maybe some salespeople, but maybe some bad players. The crazy thing is they do it without your consent. They give all your information to all these places, and it makes you vulnerable. And you know what? You actually can call hundreds of companies, thousands of companies, and tell them you don't want your information shared on the World Wide Web. But guess what? It's kind of hard and time consuming. That's why today's sponsor, Aura, is the game changer for you and your safety with your data online. Everything that we do is online now, so the last thing I want to do is try to go and find out who's got my information that shouldn't have it. That's why we recommend Aura. Aura does all the hard part. Aura goes in and they start taking your information automatically off and taking it away from some of the more compromised places, the vulnerable places. I kid you not. My inbox, my phone has been completely cleaned up, and I don't have to worry about all these crazy calls and all these insurance salesmen and all these apps tracking me all the time, because Aura is there to help. Aura also is so much more. Aura is all-in-one digital security. They do 5 things extremely well. They send you alerts if all of a sudden they find your personal information on the dark web, real-time fraud alerts for credit and banking apps, and also if your information has been compromised. 24/7 monitoring. This is the biggest, because I promise you, the people that are probably stealing your information, they're probably not doing it during the day hour. What if it's through the night? 24/7 monitoring from Aura. A secure VPN, antivirus and password manager, and so much more. A US-based support available around the clock. So if something goes wrong, you can reach out to them and they're right there to help you. Aura includes $5 million in identity theft insurance. At night when I lock my doors before we go to bed, I don't want to lock just the front and leave the back open. Aura is all in one, so that way it's protecting you all online. If I sleep at night and I physically protect my home, what about making sure that I'm digitally protecting my information? Check with Aura today, aura.com/themacs. Get 14 days free by using that link. You want a peace of mind when you sleep? Aura can give you that. Aura.com/themacs. Check them out. Now let's go to some of these other stories I think that are just absolutely huge. There was a release showing that Trump did release that they had caught the guy, that the father of the gentleman pretty much gave it away and said that he knew where his son was. They put him in custody, and he thinks very highly that this is the guy. Now, by the time you're watching this video, we may know names, and I hope we do. But this doesn't stop the situation. This doesn't make the situation better. Yes, I'm glad we caught the guy, or alleged guy. But what I want to go back to is, you hear these senators right now, like Katie Miller come out, James Langford, all these rhino Republicans. And they're like, the time for peace is now. The time for unity is now. You hear some of the Democrats that are kind of establishment good Democrats saying the same thing. I'm not saying we need to take to the streets. I'm not saying that. I don't believe Charlie and his tragic situation, his event, was done because of just politics. The man let you speak. He debated you. That was the whole purpose of his whole platform. I honestly believe it comes down to the only thing different with Charlie to Ben Shapiro, the only thing different with Charlie than any other conservative is that he wore his Christianity out front. He wore his God-fearing, Jesus-loving conservatism out front. He wore that. He wore it as a part of his mantra. If you listen to him, and listen, I've listened to Charlie since he was 18, 19 years old. If you listen to him, he never went without letting you understand his faith. I actually think this is a bigger battle than just politics. I think it's demonic, and I think the reason people went after him so much was because it was truly they saw a God-fearing man who loved Jesus and who was really good at debating it, and he knew the knowledge. I want to go to a few quotes because I think this speaks highly of this whole situation. The death of Charlie Kirk will always result in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, turning to Christ. The demons have no idea what they unleash. The word of advice, please go out and honor Kirk, not by acting a fool, by presenting the gospel. Truthfully, that's what I think we're looking at. We are not looking at this as a both sides situation, that this is a left versus right. I think this was a Jesus follower and evil demonic people wanting to take him out. I love this. Joel Berry, which is part of the Babylon Bee, said this. I thought this was one of the best posts. The most fearful threat of the leftist cult wasn't the chest-beating, wigment pump influencers like Tate or Fuentes. It was the kind, gracious, courageous, Christian, conservative, patriot, normie American family who liked dialogue and debate. The left doesn't fear most of these people online that talk, like the Fuenteses, like the Tates. He said they fear normal, godly men. This is good versus evil. Now this leads me to the last point dealing with this because I do want us to honor Charlie and not just talk about the tragedy, but talk about his legacy now. But I want you to listen to this. I thought this was good. This was a quote from Persistent. It said, I'm sick to my stomach. The amount of hate emanating from these people is something I've never seen before. And this kind of blew Misty's mind. I guess I spent enough time in the news and dealing with politics and dealing with, getting stories for the day and current events that I always see evil. And I think Misty has this mentality that she's kind of sheltered, so where she'll watch, she likes looking at her friends on Facebook, or doing the farm stuff. And I think she was blown away at how evil people can be. And I said, I'm not. That doesn't even faze me. I honestly am not surprised by it at all, because there is so much evilness in this world. Have you seen Charlie Kirk's debates with these people on these college campuses? It's so much sadness because there's so many foolish, depraved people. But I love what he said here. He says, our country is sick, America is sick, and our education is simply a viral cancer. And that's what I want to kind of hone in on. You see pictures going up, you see shirts getting made, you see the happiness with the teachers. The educational system in our world, especially in America, is a cancer. It is a lost hope. Do you remember, do y'all realize the Great Awakening, the first and second Great Awakening in America was in the Northeast, and it was New England, and they made these schools like Harvard, like Columbia, like Browns, all these Ivy League schools. You know what they were made for? Christian education and Christian theology and understanding who God was. That's why those schools were developed. Go back and look at their history. Boy, have we lost our way. So I think what we see most of is kind of like Joel Berry said, that you could have a lot of influencers, don't know what they believe, they're kind of on the fence on a lot of issues. The evilness and the left and the foolish, depraved individuals are not saying that they're scared of that. They're not scared of the De Fuenteses. And actually, I like Ben Shapiro. I wish Ben Shapiro would be saved. But to be honest with you, Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, to me, is more impactful than Ben Shapiro because they're Christians. But even them can't hold a stick to the way that Charlie Kirk or his faith on the outside. But here's the point. Our cancer that we face is not a medical cancer. It is literally the depravity of men. This war is on men in America. And until we clean up our schools, I mean, we're seeing all these people arrested, all these teachers that had said things that were so derogatory towards the tragedy. And it's like, this shouldn't surprise you. These schools are evil. Our indoctrination camps and our educational systems are evil. Our leftist cities are evil. But it's the depravity of men. And what we better start doing is start preaching exactly what Charlie did. It's not just about the politics and electing Trump. It's about, if you listen to what he said, this has been years ago, back in 2013, he said, good men will die. He said, but what I hope people see more in me than anything is Christ. Until we realize this is a spiritual war, I don't think we're willing to fight the battles that we need to fight now. Now, a few more stories I want to bring up. Central banks now hold more gold than dollars for the first time since Nixon torched the gold standard. Federal debt is now a slow motion demolition charge under the dollar. This is from Peter St. Onge. And basically what he was stating was, the writings on the wall for the dollar, what this does is two things. It's like, which way, Western man? Either we restabilize the dollar and we start buying gold to base the dollar on. That's what the Fed is doing, the federal banks, and also what international banks are doing, because they know the dollar has a very short window. Sadly, what I think our leaders are doing is they're going the opposite way. They're saying, well, we need to get we need to stabilize it, but let's stabilize it on this new digitized form. So you have a battle right now of, is gold more important or is things like cryptos more important? I'm not saying you can't have crypto, but I'm saying you better realize if you want freedom and independence, gold is the way. Now, the reason I bring this up is because if every Fed is buying gold, if China's buying gold, if Poland's buying gold, if France is buying gold, if everybody is stockpiling gold, including Jay Powell at the Fed, why in the world would we not want to buy gold? What this proves is we're spending too much money. So when we hear like these congressmen talking about how we need peace and unity through this tragedy, at the same time they're spending loads of your billions and sending more to Ukraine in the same days that we had to remember 9/11 and remember Charlie Kirk. It shows that they're not serious about any of what they're doing. It's all the kickbacks that they're getting. But ultimately what we're doing is we're destroying the dollar. Now you go back from June, July, and August, Trump's tariff initiative is surpassed what their expectations were. They're making 27, 30, 34, extra $1 billion just on top of the money that we were normally getting from tariffs. Here's the sad thing though. Here's where I'm gonna blow your mind. Your government is still spending money like crazy, and they've actually spent more money, so they had to borrow in the last 3 months. So it shows that Democrats and Republicans, they're all the same when it comes to spending. Because remember, they're the ones getting filthy rich. While you're living paycheck to paycheck, they're the ones getting filthy rich. So here's my push. You push your Congress and your Senate to a point where they know your name, that they don't want to speak to you. Because if they keep spending your money, you will have none. You will go on a digitized currency and you will be in a complete and utter dependency system of the government. If you can right now, please buy some gold. Even buy silver. There was a new article out that silver was booming, and it is. It's went up. I know when I purchased silver I bought it at $20 and $25. Now it went up to 30, then 35. Now I think it's around $40, $42 an ounce. There was a report that said AI has to have silver to mine for data. I guess some of the components dealing with some of the data centers. Now, I'm not for the data centers. I told you that I think they're going to be a big problem. But ultimately, silver may be a good investment again. So if you can buy some gold and silver, you may need to. If you can get out of debts, please do that. We are looking uphill at something very dangerous. And sadly, I don't know if we could stop the rocks and the avalanche that's going to fall on us dealing with our debt. When Peter St. Onge says, he said, we're watching our dollar be destroyed, and they're literally doing it right before your very eyes. And we're not doing one thing about it. See, here's what the media is good at. They're good at getting you off the story of what the next story is. Meaning, if something's really bothering you, like the Fort Knox audit, have you heard anything about that lately? You hadn't. And most people probably said, oh, you know, I ain't thought nothing about that. Now, we're hearing little glimpses of the files and the list being dropped, but honestly, that's almost been a thing of the past now, sadly. Thomas Massie has lost his way. He's worried more about just hurting Trump than he actually is about the truth. So we see we forget things so quickly. Well, when the next story breaks, we forget about this one and how important gold is. When the next story breaks, we forget about how they just spent more billions in Ukraine. When the next story breaks, we forget about the fact that that literally Europe is getting ready for war with mass fatality events planned. And they're paying for this new facility just in case. Now, I don't know about you. I mean, I believe in insurance. I believe in building things that we need, like a hay barn. I need a hay barn, but it's because I know I'm going to use it. I wouldn't build a hay barn just to say, just in case. I built it because probably next winter I'm going to use it. They don't award this kind of stuff and start paying for all this kind of stuff and hire new people in their ministry of defense just for the heck of it. It's getting real. Sadly, your Congress and Senate, I think, are not on your side. And so therefore, you better be pushing the buttons and find new people to primary them, or we're just going to literally watch this avalanche fall upon us. Last story I want to mention kind of goes back to the tragedies that we've been facing lately. But if you remember the blind girl that got stabbed in Charlotte, there was a report that said that Zelensky blocked her father from actually attending his daughter's funeral because he was still eligible for the draft. Meaning if he came back on shore to go to his funeral, they wouldn't allow him to go to the funeral anyway. They would put him right into the military. When we talk about this kind of stuff, do you see the coldness in leadership? Do you see the coldness in the world? Do you see how people don't have any respect for honor, for morals, for values? I mean, he just wanted to attend his daughter's funeral that tragically got taken away from him, all because she sat in a American train car. That was her crime, sitting down. Men, if we don't start standing up, families, if we don't start standing up, Christians, if we don't start standing up and actually trying to represent what we truly believe, and we let people walk all over us, then what we're doing is we're just allowing for hard times. Harder times than we can even imagine. Just like Zelensky not allowing for him to go to the funeral. That's a cold move. But so is sending billions of our dollars to Ukraine when our focus is not on that. That's a cold move by our leadership. So is a lot of other things that we've been talking about the last few days. Instead of dialing up battles, we should be looking for peace. But here's the thing. We shouldn't be willing to be walked upon. See, there's the difference. And that's what I think we should see when it comes to Christianity, and see that we have to look past the fact of, well, Jesus loved everybody. He did. But he also stood on what he believed. He overturned the money changers in the temple. He called people, it was like, you brood of vipers. Basically, we have to realize that there comes times where we have to stand up. I feel like Christians and conservatism and the real movement of that has fell by the wayside. And I hate to see one of the biggest players in that, Charlie, die. But ultimately, That should make us feel more responsible to stand up and actually represent warmth again. A big heart, wisdom, common sense, and most of all, spiritual health. We need a reawakening and revival. Let it start with us. We need it. Today's video, we're talking about mass fatality events. We're talking about the cold-heartedness of people. We're talking about the dangers that we're facing with our dollar and the loss of it. Crises. You know how we can fix that? One thing. It's turning back to Christ. That's all it takes. I think it's 2 Chronicles 7:14. You know, if we would just turn from our wicked ways. Here's the thing about what we don't realize in that verse. He wasn't talking about the depraved. He was actually just talking about the people who were godly, who were chosen. The people who were Christians. Now, that was Old Testament. But the people who believed in God. He was saying, if you just turn back to me, we could heal your land. All it takes is the people who claim to know God actually represent Him. And I promise you, our nation could be healed. I know for a season at least. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's video. God bless.